So what I want to talk about is measurement within your business and what you need to be looking at. And the first message is, if you do not measure it, you cannot improve it. And it's as simple as that. So if you're not looking at the right things in your business and you're not measuring them, then you're not going to get continual improvement in your business, which is what everybody should want. You need constant measurement for constant improvement. And you need to act on the information that this measurement gives you. And this is an important point, because what you don't want to do is fall into the trap of what a lot of people do with KPIs. This is the key performance indicators that you should be measuring, is set them up, measure them, and then don't do anything about the information that they're giving you. They are there as tools to run your business and to keep you on track. So, I mean, that is really, really important. So the basic approach, and I think, as with a lot of things, you need to keep this as simple as possible. This doesn't need to be complicated. You don't need to get into huge algorithms and so on. KPIs, keep it simple to what you understand, and choose KPIs that you want to measure in your business. You know your business better than anybody else, so don't be led away that you need very complex measures. You need to measure what you understand and what you know that you can deal with within your business. And when you're setting up your KPIs, when you start off, think about two particular areas which link back to your accounts. Think about your profit and loss and your balance sheet, because you have to have measures in both. All too often, the balance sheet gets ignored, and the balance sheet is so hugely important, and the measures that you have from there, you cannot afford to ignore it. So think of your P&L measurements, which are the ones that people tend to focus on most of the time. So you're measuring the level of profit that you're making within your business. And then your balance sheet measures are looking at how that profit impacts on the state of your business, what you're doing with the profit, how it's been invested back into your business. So look at those two broad areas. And as I say, measure what you understand and what matters to you. And the other thing is, when you're setting your KPIs, is try and think as much about ratios as measuring absolute numbers. Now, there are a few absolute numbers that you will measure, and the classic one in your P&L will be your actual sales turnover against your target. But on the whole, absolute numbers are not great for measuring. They don't give you, they're difficult to interpret, and they don't give you the real information that you need, that you will get from looking at ratios. A classic one on this in your P&L will be, for instance, your gross profit margin. Measuring gross profit each month, it doesn't necessarily tell you much, depending on what your turnover is doing. Measuring your gross profit margin is far more valuable, because it's telling you what's happening underlying in your business. And I just said about measuring this each month, and this is an important point, is to my mind, is that you should be measuring KPIs every month. Quarterly, it's not, there's too big a distance in between. You need to be looking at this on a monthly basis. And what you need to do, you need to set your budgets at the beginning of the year. So you've got your 12-month budget set out in terms of your profit and loss and your balance sheet. And then you decide at that point what KPIs you want to measure over the course of the year. So you look at it very carefully, decide on your KPIs. Remember, things that you understand and things that can impact back into your business. And then the other thing I would say is that don't choose too many. Maybe have 6 really core KPIs that you choose that you're going to measure each month. If you have too many, you'll get lost. It'll become too much too much work each month to actually try and untangle everything you've got. So 6, 8 KPIs to start off with that you can measure each month and have a look at. And what you do each month when you measure them is, as I say, you set your budget up for the beginning of the year. And then each month, as you get your actual numbers, you update your budget with those actual numbers, and you do 2 comparisons. First of all, you compare your KPIs for the month with your benchmark KPIs, what you were expecting. And then you look at, with those actual numbers, how that's impacting on your year end or your exit position, i.e. what's going to happen in when you start off 12 months time, then 11, then 10, then 9, so on. So you're always looking to what your position you're going to be in at the end of the year. So you analyze in your month, you look to what's happening at the end of the year. And when you're thinking of setting up your KPIs, think of the key areas: profits, cash, debtors, stock, and think about what's really specific for your business. Now, for one of the clients that I deal with, we've got a very, very specific KPI for them. What we measure is the number of customers that they have every month and the number of those customers that are repeat customers. And we do an analysis of what the footfall is in terms of the clients and customers coming to them. And they use that for very specific marketing to keep their marketing drive going forward. That's a very specific KPI to them. A lot of people wouldn't measure that. And it needs a specific reporting function, but can be very, very powerful in looking at that sort of thing. So as I say, keep it very specific to what you're doing within your own business. And as I said, look at ratios rather than absolute numbers. And again, the gross profit margin is perhaps one of the most important ones that there is, because you need to be looking in terms of you set your gross profit margin. And let's say we're saying our gross profit margin is going to be 50%. So, what we're saying is that for every unit that we sell, we've got a 50% profit element within that. If we look in a month and a gross profit actually is coming out at 45%, well, what's that telling us? We have to remember with all these KPIs, they are a product, and they are a product of the numbers that make them up. So understanding why that's gone to 45%, you've got to drill down into your numbers and have a look at it. So in that, producing that 45%, has it been that you haven't achieved the sales price that you intended? Is it that your costs were higher than you anticipated? Or, and this is quite important as well, is it your accounts that are out? Have you got an incorrect stock valuation? Or have you got a situation whereby your invoices are not being entered into the correct period? Because anything like that can throw out these KPIs, and you need to get that sort of thing tidied up. So the KPIs are useful for housekeeping in terms of just keeping your accounts correct and keeping things rolling along, but also as performance indicators. Because if you're staying with this gross profit percentage, let's say, we've turned up at 45%, we're happy that our stock value is correct, we're happy all the invoices are in the correct period. So what's happened? Either our sales price, we haven't achieved what we expected, or our costs are too high. In either case, we need to look at why that is and what has caused it, because there are two courses of action, basic action coming out of this. We either need to correct our sales price, correct our cost, or determine whether we didn't have the KPI correct in the first place, i.e. we're not going to achieve 50%. Actually, it's closer to 45%. Because if that is the case, the next decision we have to make is, are we changing that KPI going forward? If we can't correct it, if we can't get back to the target that we wanted of 50%, did we just have that wrong in the first instance? And now we've got to change that for the rest of the year going forward. And this is where it's very, very important to act on what the KPIs are telling you. If you're still happy that you should be 50%, and it's just that either you've discounted too much on your sales price, your suppliers have edged up the prices that you didn't expect, then you need to look at where you can rectify that. If not, and it's just that you're never going to achieve that, then you need to change your targets going forward. Don't just sit with a target that is incorrect. Because coming back to my earlier point, this is really important when you're looking at what's going to happen at your year-end position. It's no good going through the whole year forecasting a 50% gross profit if you're not achieving that, and that's not what's going to get you to your year-end balance sheet position, because that exit position is very important. And this has been really interesting just lately with the current COVID-19 situation. The exit position has become even more important than normal. And the reason that I focus on this so much, especially when we get to sort of Q4 with clients, is that I'm talking about what your balance sheet is going to look like. And these KPIs will be telling you what your balance sheet is going to look like. And at the moment, it's something you really have to focus on, because that balance sheet, for a lot of small, medium-sized companies, the outside world, all they ever get to see is your balance sheet. They don't get to see your P&L. That's not disclosed and not displayed at Companies House. It's not public information. So that balance sheet is all that the credit agencies, your suppliers, your customers have to determine how you're doing and how you've done. And something at the moment that it is always relevant, but even more relevant at the moment because everybody is nervous about the trading climate, is if your balance sheet is getting weaker, credit agencies will mark you down. And if you've got clients that are taking out insurance on the turnover they sell to you, they may find that being restricted. So use these KPIs to make sure that your exit position is maintained as strongly as possible. And that doesn't mean avoiding reducing where you need to. What it means is you need to look at the rest of your balance sheet as well and make sure that it is strong. And coming back to my point on absolutes, the things you need to measure, let's think about your balance sheet. On your balance sheet, you want to be really concentrated on your liquidity. So you need to be looking at, and you can look at things like your current ratio and your quick ratio that give you an overall balance of liquidity. But what I would tend to look at things like your debtors, your cash, and your stock. And in all of those, if you measure absolute numbers, if you just look what the number of your debtors is, or how much cash you've got, or what your stock value is, it doesn't actually necessarily tell you very much, depending on what's happening in your business. If you measure debtors on a ratio and you look at your debtor days, so you work that out each month, what your debtor days are, and what that basically means is how long it takes you to convert a debtor into your cash, then you've got a value that you can look at that. And if you said at the beginning of the year, well, I think I give 30 days credit, therefore I'm going to allow 35 days for a debtor to actually convert into cash, and you're seeing each month that that's falling around 35 days, then fine, you're okay. If you see that edging out and that's starting to nudge up to 40, 45 days, look at your credit control. You potentially got a problem, and review your bad debts even more carefully in case you've got something that's sitting in there as a bad debt. It's really, really important. The same with stock. Don't look at your absolute stock number. Look at your stock days, i.e. how long it is taking you to convert stock into a sale. Because if you look at it like that, you'll know whether you're holding too much stock or not, whether your stock holding is creeping up for whatever reason, whether you've got slow moving items, you're buying too much in too quickly ahead. But the absolute number won't tell you that. And a really important one is cash. I mean, you know the old saying, cash is king, and it always is. Don't look at cash in terms of an absolute balance too much, but look at your cash runway. And what I mean by cash runway is how much cash are you holding in terms of your normal operating expenditure going forward, and decide how many months you want to be holding. And I would say that if you've got anything below sort of 8 to 9 months, that's a little bit uncomfortable. So what I'm saying to you is let's say, for instance, that you're in a situation where you've got your monthly operating expenditures, let's say 25,000 a month, and you want a cash runway of 10 months. That means you've got to be sitting on a cash balance of £250,000 at any point in time. So what you're saying is, if your turnover stops and your expenditure is still there, you've got 10 months to restore the balance and do something about it. Now, it's been interesting previously when I've spoken to people about this, and they've said, well, that doesn't really, turnover doesn't stop just like that. Well, 10, 11 weeks ago, for a lot of people, it did. And we had a lot of interesting conversations with clients about what their cash runway needs to be. And when you look at that and you're measuring your cash runway, and you look at it in terms of projecting forward, and you suddenly see your cash runway dropping from this 8, 9 months that I was talking about down to 4, 5 months, that can be pretty scary and pretty worrying. So the cash runway is a pretty important one to measure and to be reactive to as well, which is what a lot of people have had to do over the last 10, 11 months. We spent a lot of time working with clients saying, well, okay, how do we, push out our cash runway here? How do we protect the cash resource that we've got? Because with some clients, when I was looking at a cash runway, and all of a sudden it was coming down to like 2 months, that's almost crisis management there. And if you're not acting on what that KPI has told you, then you could be in for real problems. So it's coming back to this point again. Set your KPIs, use them, don't ignore them. They're giving you valuable information, and you've got to act on that information. Otherwise, the whole process of setting and recording KPIs, it's just not going to work, and it's not going to give you really power within your business to drive it. And I think it has been really interesting over the last few months, where a lot of the things that we've been talking with clients about for years all of a sudden has taken on a lot more relevance, because we've had this COVID-19 situation. And you could sit there and say, well, it was unique, it won't happen again. I personally believe that it will. But it's a good exercise in showing that if you're measuring the right things in your business, you're measuring the things that you understand and are important to your business, then you can really have a valuable tool in how you run your business and how you drive it forward. So that's my sort of views on very, very quick overview on what I think of KPIs and what I think of the importance of the KPIs are.